Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is glaring hypocrisy when you have Republicans on the other side of the aisle trying to create definitions and say Rashida wants to annihilate people, when Max Miller himself went on TV and said we're turning Gaza into a parking lot and we want to annihilate Palestinians. Nobody condemned him on that side of the aisle. What is true here is that every single one of them has not acknowledged the fact that Palestinians are dying in the tens of thousands, but will continue to say it is us who are not acknowledging humanity. Rashida will stand strong.
Gentlelady's time has expired.
Movement.
The House floor erupted in a clash of accusations as Democrats charged Republicans with hypocrisy, condemning Ilhan Omar while overlooking incendiary remarks from within their own ranks. The contrast was sharp when one lawmaker cited Representative Max Miller's past comment about Gaza, which drew little criticism at the time. The exchange laid bare Washington's pattern of selective outrage and political posturing. When Miller later addressed the chamber, he portrayed Omar as unfit for the House Foreign Affairs Committee, arguing that her past statements had weakened America's diplomatic credibility, a credibility the committee is meant to safeguard through its work on security, peace, and global engagement. By invoking her record and past controversies, Miller aimed to question not just her remarks but her capacity to represent the nation on the world stage.
I would yield 6 minutes to Max Miller from the great state of Ohio.
The gentleman is recognized for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the gentleman from Mississippi for yielding. Mr. Speaker, the House Committee on Foreign Affairs has broad jurisdiction over national security and foreign policy, peacekeeping and peace enforcement, international law, and the promotion of democracy, and many other critical issues that require its members to be both objective and credible. Members of the Committee on Foreign Affairs represent the United States abroad and are regarded as credible emissaries of American foreign policy. Their words have significant weight in guiding our relations with other countries and are relied upon by world leaders. Most importantly, our allies such as Israel, the forever home of
Miller's most forceful moment came when he invoked Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's decision to bar Ilhan Omar from entering Israel, citing Netanyahu's assertion that while Israel respects all U.S. parties, it would not welcome anyone promoting efforts to undermine the state. To Miller, this stood as clear evidence that Omar had compromised her ability to serve impartially in foreign policy. If one of America's closest allies viewed her as biased, he argued, how could she credibly represent the nation on the world stage? He reinforced his point by highlighting the U.S.-Israel partnership, an alliance spanning more than 75 years and built on shared security interests amid turbulent regional conflicts. Miller warned that failing to uphold this bond risks weakening America's global standing. His message landed with force. Those unable to engage constructively with trusted allies should not shape the nation's foreign agenda, a stance that earned strong applause from his Republican colleagues and underscored Israel's enduring influence in U.S. politics.
But what happens when a committee member is no longer viewed as a credible emissary of our foreign policy? What if a member is barred from visiting one of our allies because of their prejudiced comments? How can members who are unable to engage with our allies in a constructive manner be considered credible members of the committee? Well, the gentlelady's discriminatory comments disqualified her from traveling to Israel in 2019. Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, would not allow Representative Omar to enter, saying, "We respect all political parties in the United States equally. However, we will also respect ourselves. Whoever comes to impose boycotts on us and to deny the legitimacy of the State of Israel, we will not allow them entry." Yes, the gentlelady disqualified herself from entry into one of the most important countries allied with the United States. Over the past 75 years, Israel has been a steadfast ally of the United States. Israel has stood by us through the volatility in the Middle East, and this alliance has been critical to our own national security. How can someone not welcomed by one of our most important allies serve as an emissary of American foreign policy on the Foreign Affairs Committee? And given her biased comments against Israel,
Miller reignited debate by revisiting Omar's 2019 tweet suggesting that political backing for Israel was driven by Benjamin's, a comment he said echoed long-standing anti-Semitic stereotypes linking Jewish influence to money and power. He reminded the chamber that even Democratic leaders had denounced her remarks at the time, arguing that the backlash was once bipartisan, not a partisan attack. To Miller, this wasn't an isolated lapse but part of a troubling pattern that, in his view, undermined her credibility on global affairs. The tone turned deeply personal when he referenced Omar's "some people did something" description of the September 11th attacks, calling it dismissive of the nearly 3,000 Americans who died that day. Miller emphasized that countless Americans, himself included, answered the call to serve in the military after September 11th, suggesting that her words diminished their sacrifice. His argument framed her rhetoric as not merely controversial, but as a profound affront to national service, unity, and the values that define American resilience.
How can she serve as an objective decision maker on the committee? Let's take a look at some of the gentlelady's comments. In February of 2019, barely more than a month after becoming a member of this body, Representative Omar suggested that the Jewish people and the American Israel Public Affairs Committee were buying political support, writing on Twitter, "It's all about the Benjamins, baby," clearly amplifying an anti-Semitic stereotype about the Jewish people and money. In response, congressional Democratic leadership, her own party, immediately released a statement by saying anti-Semitism must be called out, confronted, and condemned wherever it is encountered without exception. Not long after Representative Omar trivialized the terrorist attacks of September 11th, 2001, by describing that day of infamy as "some people did something." That's horrific. Some people did something. Yes, Mr. Speaker, some people did do something. Some people committed evil acts of terrorism and killed nearly 3,000 Americans. And in response, some thousands of our fellow citizens, myself included, enlisted in our armed forces to defend the gentlelady's right to make her prejudice.
Miller went further, condemning Omar for once drawing parallels between Israel and the U.S. on one side and groups like the Taliban and Hamas on the other, a comparison he called unacceptable. He argued that equating democratic nations built on rule of law with violent extremist organizations was not only inaccurate but deeply offensive. Citing the dozen House Democrats who had also rebuked her for that statement, Miller emphasized that criticism of Omar had crossed party lines. To him, this wasn't about political rivalry but about principle. He laid out what he saw as a recurring pattern, from her Benjamin's remark to her 9/11 comments, to her criticisms of Israel's policies, framing it as a consistent dismissal of America's allies and ideals. By connecting these moments, Miller presented his push to remove Omar from the committee as a matter of safeguarding national integrity, not scoring political points. In his telling, it was about defending the nation's credibility, security, and moral standing on the world stage.
But they did not die fighting to have their bravery and love of country undermined by a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Mr. Speaker, I have no words to describe just how utterly unacceptable these comments are. But that's not all. In 2021, the gentlelady referred to Israel, which has the absolute right to defend itself against terrorism and attacks on its very existence, as an apartheid state. She even equated the United States and Israel, countries that have stood as beacons of democracy, to the Taliban and Hamas, organizations that impose terror on their regions in the world. Once again, even her Democrat colleagues swiftly condemned her comment. 12 Democrat members of this body released a statement which noted equating the United States and Israel to Hamas and the Taliban is as offensive as it is misguided, ignoring the differences between democracies governed by the rule of law and contemptible organizations that engage in terrorism. At best discredits one intended argument and at worst reflects deep-seated prejudice from her own party. Some have decried this effort as a political game. Mr. Speaker, I assure you this is no political game. This resolution is not about engaging in a tit-for-tat with my colleagues.
By the close of his speech, Miller called on lawmakers to stand together and approve the resolution removing Omar from the committee, framing it not as a partisan victory but as a statement that Congress would not tolerate prejudice or hostility in any form. He pointed to condemnations from both parties as evidence that this was about defending American principles, not political gain. His remarks carried the weight of accountability and conviction, urging Congress to uphold integrity in its ranks. Following his address, commentators such as Alison Reacts reignited the discussion across social and video platforms, describing the replay of Omar's past statements as unsettling and deeply revealing. They argued that her words reflected a troubling pattern inconsistent with the responsibilities of shaping U.S. foreign policy, while also highlighting what they saw as a double standard in media coverage.